No role plays, no conference calls, no BS. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader. This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this episode's holiday hack. For the holiday season this year, we're going over the top YouTube videos about leadership as being watched by current and future leaders of Generation Z. I like this concept that we've been doing because it really calls out a lot of the things that are important to people who are up-and-coming leaders, because the things that are important to them are largely the things that are important to the people they are leading. And, it's interesting to see how, maybe some priorities have shifted over the years with regard to, what people think are important skills for leaders to have. On this episode, we're going to be going over a video from Daniel Pink called Drive. It's a pretty famous video. We'll put a link in the podcast description. It's basically what he calls the surprising truth about what motivates us. And it's interesting because I don't think it's surprising anymore. Like when he put it out, it was the surprising truth about what motivates us. Now it's pretty obvious, but the way that he talks about it, I think is a great way to be framed for people who are trying to figure out how people want to be led. If you watch this as a leader, you instantly start to insert yourself into, okay, what is my job as a leader in terms of providing these things or facilitating them for the people who are relying on me, and in a way that makes them less likely to want to leave and go somewhere else to work. So I like this video a lot.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of this video and just the talk in general and just kind of the idea of really understanding people's motivation, and the ways in which people like to be led and engaged by their leader, and being really conscious of understanding, how sometimes things like monetary elements and bonuses and things like that, well, every one of us would raise our hand and say, well, yeah, you can give me more money to do a good job. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
When it comes to really truly having kind of an intrinsic motivation turned on, many times it's due to having the ability to be a part of something bigger, the chance to flex your passions and your creative skills in a job that you do, where maybe that's not what you do full time, and it's a lot of times like gaining, trust and confidence through being asked to do cool work and things that has a greater benefit. So again, I really like this video, and I think for most people when they watch it, there's a couple of like big aha moments that you go like, yeah, I that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think when you have videos like that, and especially like in this style of video, it's super cool to watch while you're listening to it.
Right. So he starts out talking about how that when you're trying to reward somebody, tangible rewards like money and bonuses, they work really well when the task being rewarded is something that is really objective. How many of this did you sell versus somebody else? And if you get to a certain level, you get this amount of bonus or reward or whatever. That works really well. But as soon as you add in a cognitive element where you're asking people to be creative or to think outside the box or to come up with new and different things to execute, and then the bonus or the reward is based on the overall results, the larger rewards lead to poorer performance. And I think the reason that he comes to this conclusion is something you can see even today. Look at how a lot of people who have done really well in business. You look at there's always a new news story about a CEO who put their foot in their mouth because they said the wrong thing that was kind of obtuse to the things that their people are going through, and how we talk about it. The ratio of CEO pay to employee pay, how that's getting out of control in a lot of areas. But you don't ever hear somebody faulting someone who plays sports professionally for the amount of money they make or whatever that is. And I think it's because you can look at somebody who plays professional sports and say to your mind, yeah, that makes sense. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't get to that level. And so it makes sense that I can objectively see somebody who can, that they're getting rewarded. Whereas you look at the way, there are people who lead teams and who make a lot of money doing that, who you can look at and go, how did you get there even? Like, how are you in the position that you're in? So because of that, I think that's where that is kind of rooted in this idea that when something is measurable and objective, the reward can be measurable and objective. Otherwise, it really shouldn't be, or you kind of lose that tie-in. He says that people are driven by three things, and the money aspect of it is only important to the point with which it doesn't matter. And he says that when you're looking about what to pay somebody, they should be paid enough to where money doesn't matter. And we've seen that a lot. If they talk about how a raise that once you're at a certain level where all of your needs are taken care of, raises on top of that, you don't get much bump in terms of productivity or happiness or engagement. It's a very minor or small one, and then you go back to a baseline. Once people don't worry about where their food is coming from and they have shelter and healthcare and their kids are taken care of, once all that happens, really the things that are important to people are what he says: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I want to talk about those things. I think they're important too, but first I want to give up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, I couldn't agree more with this. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. He goes into a lot about what they are, but they're what motivate me and drive me to do things better. And when I don't have them, I typically try to find a different job that I can do where I do have those things.
Yeah, and I love the example he gave around kind of these three things coming together, and it's from a company called Atlassian, who was a longtime sponsor of the show. So it was kind of cool to like go back on this video and be like, oh yeah, we know Atlassian very well. And he said that once a quarter on Thursdays, they would tell their developers, for the next 24 hours, you can work on anything you want, the way that you want, with whomever you want. And the only ask that we have is that you show the results of the company. And what was really cool about this was that they got a whole bunch of, they have a whole bunch of autonomy. And what they came up with was a whole bunch of new ideas for new products, for fixing existing software, and all of these really cool things came out of that space. And I think that it's a great example of going to a team and saying, no, you get to do kind of whatever you want. We trust you with this time. We want to give you the autonomy. We know that you're professionals, and the only requirement is you got to show us what you did. Right. And I think that caveat kind of made it where people are like, all right, well, I want to not only have some fun and work on something kind of cool, but I want it to have an impact here. I want it to mean something to the organization. And I think it's just a great example of that. And again, we don't all have that ability, right? I can't just go and say, hey, team, come over here, and I want to give you the next day to just do nothing but just hang out and discuss great ideas. But I can create those spaces, and I can create those pockets of time when we kind of have, and we've talked about it in the podcast before, but like a no bad idea policy on a strategy, or we talked earlier about kind of like the whiteboard and the blue sky kind of approach. There are definitely ways that you can make this happen on not such a big scale, but there's something to be said when you have an organization that's committed to creating this type of a space, and then the outcomes that you get out of it.
Well, yeah. Well, the idea that people want autonomy, it doesn't mean they want to not be told what to do. It's that they want to know that they have some semblance of control over how they spend their time, as long as it is in the spirit of what they were hired to do. So, in the example that Daniel Pink gives about Atlassian, it's the people weren't tasked with solving problems with how to get their kids to school better, right? It was problems that the organization was facing. But who better to do that than the people who live with those pain points every day? I'm sure all those people think to themselves, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm dealing with this again. This is going to be the thing that I work on the next quarter when we get that day, to do that. They kind of have the thing loaded in the hopper and ready to go, where they don't have the time to do it or the space to do it. But on this one day a quarter, they do have it, and a lot of problems get solved. The idea of being able to get better at things is what he talks about when it comes to mastery. And I agree. It's what he talks about, how people who pick up a musical instrument and try to get better at it, but they're not being paid to do that. They're just doing it because this idea of starting something, being bad at it, and then working at it, and then becoming better at it, even though the only reward is just kind of the self-satisfaction of knowing that you're better at it. I think it's something that is a large part of human nature. And then lastly, he talks about purpose. And what his words are is, when the profit motive becomes unmoored from the purpose motive, bad things can happen. And I liked how he says that, because it's not either or, it's both. You find no shortage of debates where someone is saying that, don't worry about profits, it's about purpose. And then you have other people who say, well, if you don't have profits, then you don't have a company. And they're both right. they're both right. It can't just be about purpose. If you're an organization, there have to be objective results that you have to go with. But if that's all you're worried about is whatever those objective results are, and they are not tied into a larger purpose, you're less likely to get people who are giving their all and who are working in an engaged and highly performing way, because it's most likely the case that a lot of those people, they don't share in all of the profits in a very tangible and one-to-one way, the way that a shareholder would, or the people who lead the company are. Obviously, there are more opportunities for promotions and moving up if you would like to do that, but the idea of just hoping somebody performs well and engages fully in their job because they like the idea of the company making more money, it just doesn't happen nowadays. You have to feel like you're part of something that is larger than yourself, and then to see the profits come as a result of that, no one faults you for that. But to see the profits come first means that you will largely lose your purpose. And I think that's what he's talking about, is you have to start with the purpose and then know that you have to tie that into a profit motive.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.